But in spite of his utmost endeavor, he could not make the second attempt successful. The Lord is completely independent of all obligations. He can simply be bound up by the tie of unalloyed devotion, nor is he visible or perceivable by our material senses. When he pleases, being satisfied with a sincere attempt of devotional service, depending completely on the mercy of the Lord, then he may be seen out of his own accord. Seeing my attempts in that lonely space, the personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to all material description, spoke to me with gravity and pleasing words, just to mitigate my grief. In the Vedas, it is said that God is beyond the approach of mundane words and intelligence, and yet by his causeless mercy, one can have suitable senses to hear or to speak to him, to hear him or to speak to him. This is the Lord's inconceivable energy. One upon whom his mercy is bestowed can hear him. The Lord was much pleased with Narad Muni, and therefore the necessary strength was invested in him so that he could hear the Lord. It is not, however, possible for others to perceive directly the touch of the Lord during the probationary stage of regulated devotional service. It was a special gift for Narada. When he heard the pleasing words of the Lord, the feelings of separation were to some extent mitigated. A devotee in love with God feels always the pangs of separation and is therefore always enwrapped in transcendental ecstasy. O Narada, the Lord spoke, I regret that during this lifetime you will not be able to see me anymore. Those who are incomplete in service and who are not completely free from all material taints can hardly see me. The personality of Godhead is described in the Bhagavad Gita as the most pure, the supreme, and the absolute truth. There is no trace of a tinge of materiality in his person, and thus one who has the slightest tinge of material affection cannot approach him. The beginning of devotional service starts from the point when one is freed from at least two forms of material modes, namely the mode of passion and the mode of ignorance. The result is exhibited by the signs of being freed from kama, lust, and lobha, covetousness. That is to say, one must be freed from the desires for sense gratification and avarice for sense gratification. The balanced mode of nature is goodness, and to be completely freed from all material tinges is to become free from the mode of goodness also. To search the audience of God in a lonely forest is considered to be in the mode of goodness. One can go out into the forest to attain spiritual perfection, but that does not mean that one can see the Lord personally there. One must be completely freed from all material attachment and be situated on the plane of transcendence, which alone will help the devotee get in personal touch with the personality of Godhead. The best method is that one should live at a place where the transcendental form of the Lord is worshipped. The temple of the Lord is a transcendental place, whereas the forest is a materially good habitation. A neophyte devotee is always recommended to worship the deity of the Lord, Archana, rather than go into the forest to search out the Lord. Devotional service begins with the process of Achman, which is better than going out in the forest. With the process of Archana, which is better than going out in the forest. In his present life, which is completely freed from all material hankerings, Sri Narad Muni does not go into the forest, although he can turn every place into Vaikuntha by his presence only. He travels from one place to another to convert men, gods, kinnaras, gandharvas, rishis, munis, and all others to become devotees of the Lord. By his activities, he engaged many devotees like Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, and many others in the transcendental service of the Lord. A pure devotee of the Lord, therefore, follows in the footsteps of the great devotees like Narada and Prahlad, and engages his whole time in glorifying the Lord by the process of kirtan.
Do you want to read also?
Such a preaching process is transcendental to all material qualities.
Text 22. Translation. O virtuous one, you have only once seen my person, and this is just to increase your desire for me, because the more you hanker for me, the more you will be freed from all material desires. Purport. A living being cannot be vacant of desires. He is not a dead stone. He must be working, thinking, feeling, and willing. But when he thinks, feels, and wills materially, he becomes entangled, and conversely, when he thinks, feels, and wills for the service of the Lord, he becomes gradually freed from all entanglement. The more a person is engaged in transcendental loving service of the Lord, the more he acquires a hankering for it. That is the transcendental nature of godly service. Material service has satiation, whereas spiritual service of the Lord has neither satiation nor end. One can go on increasing his hankerings for the loving transcendental service of the Lord, and yet he will not find satiation or end. By intense service of the Lord, one can experience the presence of the Lord transcendentally. Therefore, seeing the Lord means being engaged in his service, because his service and his person are identical. The sincere devotee should go on with the sincere service of the Lord. The Lord will give proper direction as to how and where it has to be done. There was no material desire in Narada, and yet, just to increase his intense desire for the Lord, he was so advised. Text 23. Translation. By service of the Absolute Truth, even for a few days, a devotee attains firm and fixed intelligence in me. Consequently, he goes on to become my associate in the transcendental world after giving up the present deplorable material worlds. Purport. Serving the Absolute Truth means rendering service unto the Absolute Personality of Godhead under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master, who is transparent via medium between the Lord and the neophyte devotee. The neophyte devotee has no ability to approach the Absolute Personality of Godhead by the strength of his present imperfect material senses, and therefore, under the direction of this spiritual master, he is trained in the transcendental service of the Lord. And by such training, even for some days, the neophyte devotee gets intelligence in such transcendental service, which leads him ultimately to get free from perpetual inhabitation in the material worlds and to be promoted to the transcendental world to become one of the liberated associates of the Lord in the kingdom of God. Text 24. Translation. Intelligence engaged in my devotion cannot be thwarted at any time. Even at the time of creation, as well as at the time of annihilation, your remembrance will continue by my mercy. Purport. Devotional service rendered to the personality of Godhead never goes in vain. Since the personality of Godhead is eternal, intelligence applied in his service or anything done in his relation is also permanent. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that such transcendental service rendered unto the personality of Godhead accumulates birth after birth, and when the devotee is fully matured, the total service counted together makes him eligible to enter into the association of the personality of God. Such accumulation of God's service is never vanquished, but increases till fully mature. Text 25. Translation. Then that supreme authority, personified by sound and unseen by the eyes, but most wonderful, stopped speaking. Feeling a sense of gratitude, I offered my obeisances unto him, bowing my head. Purpose. That personality of Godhead was not seen but only heard doesn't make any difference. The personality of Godhead produced the four Vedas by his breathing, and he is seen and realized through the transcendental sound of the Vedas. Similarly, the Bhagavad Gita is the sound representation of the Lord, and there is no difference in identity. The conclusion is that Lord can be seen and heard by persistent chanting of the transcendental sound. Text 26. Translation. Thus I began chanting the holy name and fame of the Lord by repeated recitation, ignoring all the formalities of the material world. Such chanting and remembering of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are benedictory. So doing, I traveled all over the earth, fully satisfied, humble, and unenvious. Purport. The life of a sincere devotee of the Lord is thus explained in a nutshell by Narada Muni by his personal example. Such a devotee, after his initiation by the Lord or his bona fide representative, takes very seriously chanting of the glories of the Lord and traveling all over the world so that others may also hear the glories of the Lord. Such devotees have no desire for material gain. They are conducted by one single desire, to go back to Godhead. This awaits them in due course on quitting the material body. Because they have the highest aim of life, going back to Godhead, they are never envious of anyone, nor are they proud of being eligible to go back to Godhead. Their only business is to chant and remember the holy name, fame, and pastimes of the Lord, and according to the personal capacity, to distribute the message for others' welfare without motive of a material gain. Text 27. Translation. And so, O Brahmana Vyasadeva, in due course of time, I, who was fully absorbed in thinking of Krishna and who therefore had no attachments, being completely freed from all material taints, met with death as lightning and illumination occur simultaneously. Purport. To be fully absorbed in the thought of Krishna means clearance of material dulls or hankerings. As a very rich man has no hankerings for small petty things, so also a devotee of the Lord Krishna, who is guaranteed to pass on to the kingdom of God, where life is eternal, fully cognizant and blissful, naturally has no hankerings for petty material things, which are like dolls or shadows of the reality and are without permanent value. That is the sign of spiritually enriched persons. And in due course of time, when a pure devotee is completely prepared, all of a sudden the change of body occurs, which is commonly called death. And for the pure devotee, such change takes place exactly like lightning and illumination follows simultaneously. That is to say, a devotee simultaneously changes his material body and develops a spiritual body by the will of the Supreme. Even before death, a pure devotee has no material affection due to his body's being spiritualized like a red hot iron in contact with fire. Text 28. Translation. Having been awarded a transcendental body befitting an associate of the personality of Godhead, I quit the body made up of 5 material elements, and thus all acquired fugitive results of work, karma, stopped. Purport. Informed by the personality of Godhead that he would be awarded a transcendental body befitting the Lord's association, Narada got his spiritual body as soon as he quitted his material body. This transcendental body is free from material affinity and invested with 3 primary transcendental qualities, namely eternity, freedom from material modes, and freedom from reactions of fruitive activities. The material body is always afflicted with the lack of these 3 qualities. A devotee's body becomes at once surcharged with transcendental qualities as soon as he is engaged in devotional service of the Lord. It acts like the magnetic influence of a touchstone upon iron. The influence of transcendental devotional service is like that. Therefore, change of body means stoppage of reactions of 3 qualitative modes of material nature upon the pure devotee. There are many instances of this in the revealed scriptures. Dhruva Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj and many other devotees were able to see the personality of Godhead face to face, apparently in the same body. This means that quality of a devotee's body changes from material to transcendence. That is the opinion of the authorized Goswamis via the authentic scriptures. In Brahma Samhita, it is said that beginning from Indra Gopa Jarma up to great Indra, the king of heaven, all living beings are subjected to the laws of karma and are bound to suffer and enjoy the fruitive results of their own work. Only the devotee is exempt from such reactions by the causeless mercy of the Supreme Authority, the Personality of God. Text 29. Translation. At the end of the millennium, when the Personality of Godhead, Lord Narayana, lay down within the water of devastation, Brahma began to enter into him along with all creative elements, and I also entered through his breathing. Purport. Narada is known as son of Brahma, as Lord Krishna is known as son of Vasudeva. The personality of Godhead and his liberated devotees like Narada appear in the material world by the same process. As it is said in the Bhagavad Gita, the birth and activities of the Lord are all transcendental. Therefore, according to authorized opinion, the birth of Narada as the son of Brahma is also transcendental pastime. His appearance and disappearance are practically on the same level as that of Lord. Lord and his devotees are therefore simultaneously one and different as spiritual entities. They belong to the same category of transcendence. Text 30. Translation. After 4.3 million solar years, when Brahma awoke to create again by the will of the Lord, all the rishis like Marichi, Angira, Atri, and so on were created from the transcendental body of the Lord, and I also appeared along with them. Purport. The duration of the day in the life of Brahma is 4.32 million solar years. This is stated also in the Bhagavad Gita. So for this period, Brahmaji rests in Yoga Nidra within the body of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, the generator of Brahma. Thus, after sleeping period of Brahma, when there is again creation by the will of the Lord through the agency of Brahma, all the great rishis again appear from different parts of the transcendental body, and Narada also appears. This means that Narada appears in the same transcendental body just as a man awakes from sleep in the same body. Sri Narada is eternally free to move all parts of the transcendental and material creations of the Almighty. He appears and disappears in his own transcendental body, which is without distinction of body and soul, unlike conditioned beings. Text 31. Translation. Since then, by the grace of the Almighty Vishnu, I travel everywhere without restriction, both in the transcendental world and in three divisions of the material world. This is because I am fixed in unbroken devotional service of the Lord. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, there are three divisions of material spheres, namely Urdhva-loka, topmost planets, Madhya-loka, midway planets, and Adho-loka, downward planets. Beyond the Urdhva-loka planets, that is to say above the Brahma-loka, the material coverings of the universes, and above, that is spiritual sky, which is unlimited in expansion, containing unlimited self-illuminated Vaikuntha planets inhabited by God himself along with his associates, who are all eternally liberated living entities. Sri Narada Muni could enter all these planets in both the material and spiritual spheres without restriction, as much as the Almighty Lord is free to move personally in any part of his creation. In the material world, the living beings are influenced by three modes of material nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. But Sri Narada Muni is transcendental to all these material modes, and thus he can travel everywhere unrestricted. He is a liberated spaceman. The causeless mercy of Lord Vishnu is unparalleled, and such mercy is perceived by devotees only by the grace of the Lord. Therefore, the devotees never fall down, but materialists, that is, the fruitive workers and the speculative philosophers, do fall down, being forced by their respective modes of nature. The rishis, as mentioned above, cannot enter into the transcendental world like Narada. This fact is disclosed in Narsimha Purana. Rishis like Marichi are authorities in fruitative work, and rishis like Sanaka and Sanatana are authorities in philosophical speculations. But Sri Narada Muni is the prime authority for transcendental devotional service of the Lord. All the great authorities in devotional service of the Lord follow in the footsteps of Narada Muni in the order of Narada Bhakti Sutra, and therefore all the devotees of the Lord are unhesitantly qualified to enter into the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha. Text 32. Translation. And thus I travel, constantly singing the transcendental message of the glories of the Lord, vibrating this instrument called Veena, which is charged with transcendental sound and which was given to me by Lord Krishna. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The musical stringed instrument called Veena, which was handed to Narada by Lord Sri Krishna, is described in Linga Purana, and this is confirmed by Srila Jiva Goswami. This transcendental instrument is identical with Lord Sri Krishna and Narada because all of them are of the same transcendental category. Sound vibrated by the instrument cannot be material, and therefore the glories and pastimes which are broadcast by the instrument of Narada are also transcendental, without a tinge of material inebriety. The 7 singing meters, namely Sa, Ra, Ga, Ma, Pa, Dha, Ni, are also transcendental and specifically meant for transcendental songs. As a pure devotee of the Lord, Sri Narada Deva is always fulfilling his obligation to the Lord for his gift of the instrument, and thus he is always engaged in singing his transcendental glories and is therefore infallible in his exalted position. Following in the footsteps of Srila Narada Muni, a self-realized soul in the material world should also properly use the sound meters, namely Sa, Ra, Ga, Ma, etc., in the service of the Lord by constantly singing the glories of the Lord as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Text 33. Translation. The Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, whose glories and activities are pleasing to hear, at once appear on the scene of my heart, as if called for, as soon as I begin to chant his holy activities. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Read it again.
Sorry.
Read it. Text again.
I'm sorry, I didn't
Read the text.
text.
Okay.
The absolute personality of Godhead is not different from his transcendental name, form, pastimes, and sound vibrations thereof. As soon as a pure devotee engages himself in the pure devotional service of hearing, chanting, and remembering the name, fame, activities of the Lord, at once he becomes visible to the transcendental eyes of the pure devotee by reflecting himself on the mirror of the heart by spiritual television. Therefore, a pure devotee who is related with the Lord in loving transcendental service can experience the presence of the Lord at every moment. It is a natural psychology in every individual case that a person likes to hear and enjoy his personal glories enumerated by others. That is a natural instinct, and the Lord, being also an individual personality like others, is not an exception to this psychology, because psychological characteristics visible in the individual souls are but reflections of the same psychology in the absolute Lord. The only difference is that Lord is the greatest personality of all and absolute in all his affairs. If therefore the Lord is attracted by his pure devotees chanting of his glories, there is nothing astonishing. Since he is absolute, he can appear himself in the picture of his glorification, the two things being identical. Srila Narada chants the glorification of the Lord not for his personal benefit, but because the glorifications are identical with the Lord. Narada Muni Narada Muni penetrates into the presence of the Lord by the transcendental chanting. Text 34. Translation. It is personally experienced by me that those who are always full of cares and anxieties due to desiring contact of the senses with their objects can cross the ocean of nations on a most suitable boat, the constant chanting of the transcendental activities of the personality of God. Purport. The symptoms of a living being is that he cannot remain silent even for some time. He must be doing something, thinking of something, or talking about something. Generally, the materialistic men think and discuss about subjects which satisfy their senses. But as these things are exercised under the influence of external illusionary energy, such sensual activities do not actually give them any satisfaction. On the contrary, they become full with cares and anxieties. This is called Maya, or what is not. That which cannot give them satisfaction is accepted as an object for satisfaction. So Narada Muni, by his personal experience, says that satisfaction from such frustrated beings engaged in this gratification is to chant always the activities of the Lord. The point is that the subject matter only should be changed. No one can check the thinking activities of the living being, nor the feeling, willing, or working processes. But if one wants actual happiness, one must change the subject matter only. Instead of talking the politics of dying man, one might discuss the politics administered by the Lord himself. Instead of relishing activities of cinema artists, one can turn his attention to the activities of the Lord with his eternal associates like gopis and lakshmis. The Almighty Personality of Godhead, by his causeless mercy, descends to the earth and manifests activities almost on the line of the worldly man, but at the same time extraordinarily, because he is Almighty. He does so for the benefit of all conditioned souls, so that they can turn their attention to transcendence. By doing so, the conditioned soul will gradually be promoted to the transcendental position and easily cross the ocean of nations, the source of all miseries. This is stated from the personal experience by such authorities as Sri Narada Muni. And we can have the same experience also if we begin to follow in the footsteps of the great sage, the dearmost devotee of the Lord. Text 35. Translation. It is true that by practicing restraint of the senses by the yoga system, one can get relief from the disturbances of desire and lust. But this is not sufficient to give satisfaction to the soul, for this satisfaction is derived from devotional service to the personality of Godhead. Purport. The yoga aims at controlling the senses. By practice of mystic process of bodily exercise in sitting, thinking, feeling, willing, concentrating, meditating, and at last being merged into transcendence, one can control the senses. The senses are considered like venomous serpents, and yoga system is just to control them. On the other hand, Narada Muni recommends another method for controlling the senses in the transcendental loving service of Mukunda, the personality of Godhead. By his experience, he says that devotional service to the Lord is more effective and practical than the system of artificially controlling the senses. In the service of the Lord Mukunda, the senses are transcendentally engaged. Thus, there is no chance of being engaged in sense satisfaction. The senses want some engagement. To check them artificially is no check at all, because as soon as there is some opportunity for enjoyment, the serpent-like senses will certainly take advantage of it. There are many such instances in the history, just like Vishwamitra Muni's falling a victim to beauty Menaka. But Thakur Haridas was allured at midnight by well-dressed Maya, and still she could not induce that great devotee into her trap. The whole idea is that without devotional service of the Lord, neither the yoga system nor dry philosophical speculation can ever become successful. Pure devotional service of the Lord without being tinged with fruitive work, mystic yoga, or speculative philosophy is the foremost procedure to attain self-realization. Such pure devotional service is transcendental in nature, and the system of the yoga and jnana are subordinate to such process. When the transcendental devotional service is mixed with a subordinate process, it is no longer transcendental but is called mixed devotional service. Srila Vyasadeva, the author of Srimad Bhagavatam, will gradually develop all these different systems of transcendental realization in the text. Text 36, translation. O Vyasadeva, you are freed from all sins. Thus, I have explained my birth and activities for self-realization as you asked. All this will be conducive for your personal satisfaction also. Purport. The process of devotional activities from the beginning to the stage of transcendence is all duly explained to satisfy the inquiries of Vyasadeva. He has explained how the seeds of devotional service were sown by transcendental association and how they gradually developed by hearing the sages. The result of such hearing is detachment from worldliness, so much so that even a small boy could receive the death news of his mother, who was his only caretaker, as a blessing of God. And at once he took the opportunity to search out the Lord. A sincere urge for having an interview with the Lord was also granted to him, although it is not possible for anyone to see the Lord with mundane eyes. He also explained how, by execution of pure transcendental service, one can get rid of the fruitive action of accumulated work, and how he transformed his material body into spiritual one. The spiritual body is alone able to enter into spiritual realm of the Lord, and no one but a pure devotee is eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. All the mysteries of transcendental realization are duly experienced by Narada Muni himself, and therefore, by hearing such an authority, one can have some idea of the results of devotional life, which are hardly delineated even in the original texts of the Vedas. In the Vedas and Upanishads, there are only indirect hints to all this. Nothing is directly explained there, and therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam is the mature truth of all the Vedic trees of literatures. Text 37. Translation. Sutta Goswami said, thus addressing Vyasadeva, Sri Narada Muni took leave of him, and vibrating on his veena instrument, he left to wander at his free will. Purport. Every living entity is anxious for full freedom because that is his transcendental nature. And this freedom is obtained only through the transcendental service of the Lord. Illusioned by external energy, everyone thinks that he is free, but actually he is bound up by the laws of nature. A conditioned soul cannot freely move from one place to another, even on this earth, and what to speak of one planet to another. But full-fledged free soul like Narada, always engaged in chanting of Lord's glory, is free to move not only on the earth but also in any part of the universe as well as in any part of the spiritual sky. We can just imagine the extent and unlimitedness of his freedom, which is as good as that of the Supreme God. There is no reason or obligation for his traveling, and no one can stop him from his free movement. Similarly, the transcendental system of devotional service is also free. It may or may not develop in a particular person even after he undergoes all the detailed formulas. Similarly, the association of devotees is also free. One may be fortunate to have it, or one may not have it even after thousands of endeavors. Therefore, in all spheres of devotional service, freedom is the main pivot. Without freedom, there is no execution of devotional service. The freedom surrendered to the Lord doesn't mean that the devotee becomes dependent in every respect. To surrender unto the Lord through the transparent medium of the spiritual master is to attain complete freedom of life. Text 38. Translation. All glory and success to Srila Narada Muni because he glorifies the activities of the personality of Godhead, and so doing he himself takes pleasure and also enlivens all distressed souls of the universe. Purport. Sri Narada Muni plays on his instrument to glorify the transcendental activities of the Lord and to give relief to all miserable living entities of the universe. No one is happy here within the universe, and what is felt as happiness is Maya's illusion. The illusionary energy of the Lord is so strong that even the hog who lives on filthy stool feels happy. No one can be truly happy within the material world. Srila Narada Muni, in order to enlighten the miserable inhabitants, wanders everywhere. His mission is to get them back home, back to Godhead. That is the mission of all genuine devotees of the Lord, following the footsteps of that great sage. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 6th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Conversation between Narada and Vasudeva. Continue, Guru Maharaj.
Is it okay?
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Can I continue?
The morning is right. See. Yeah.
Chapter 7. The son of Drona, Punish. Text 1.
Yes.
So that's
Guru chapter 2.
chapter 2.
Chapter
First thing.
Chapter 2. Divinity and Divine Service. Text 1. Translation. Ugrasarva, Sutta Goswami, the son of Ramaharshana, being fully satisfied by perfect questions of the Brahmanas, thanked them and thus attempted to reply. Purport. The sages of Naimisharanya asked Sutta Goswami 6 questions, and so he is answering them one by one. Text 2. Translation. Srila Sutta Goswami said, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the great sage, Sukadeva Goswami, who can enter the hearts of all." When he went away to take up the renounced order of life, sannyasa, leaving home without undergoing the reformation by sacred thread or the ceremonies observed by the higher caste, his father Vyasadeva, fearing separation from him, cried out, "O my son, indeed, only the trees which were absorbed in the same feelings of separation echoed in response to the bereaved father." Purport. The institution of Varna and Ashrama prescribes many regulative duties to be observed by his followers. Such duties involve that a candidate willing to study the Veda must approach a bona fide spiritual master and request acceptance as his disciple. The sacred thread is a sign of those who are competent to study the Vedas from the Acharya or the bona fide spiritual master. Sri Sukadeva Goswami did not undergo such purificatory ceremonies because he was liberated from his very birth. Generally, a man is born as an ordinary being, and by the purificatory processes, he is born for the second time. When he sees a new life and seeks direction for spiritual progress, he approaches a spiritual master for instruction in the Vedas. The spiritual master accepts only the sincere inquirer as his disciple and gives him sacred thread. In this way, a man becomes twice born or Dvija. After qualifying as Dvija, one may study the Vedas, and after becoming well versed in the Vedas, one becomes a Vipra. A Vipra or a qualified Brahmana thus realizes the absolute and makes further progress in spiritual life until he reaches the Vaishnava stage. The Vaishnava stage is the postgraduate status of a Brahmana. A progressive Brahmana must necessarily become a Vaishnava, for Vaishnava is a self-realized, learned Brahmana. Srila Sukadeva Goswami was a Vaishnava from the beginning. Therefore, there was no need for him to undergo all the processes of Varnashrama institution. Ultimately, the aim of Varnashrama Dharma is to turn a crude man into a pure devotee of the Lord, or a Vaishnava. Anyone, therefore, who becomes a Vaishnava, accepted by the first class Vaishnava or Uttama Adhikari Vaishnava, is already considered a Brahmana, regardless of his birth or past deeds. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted this principle and recognized Srila Haridas Thakur as the Acharya of the holy name, although Thakur Haridas appeared in a Mohammedan family. In conclusion, Srila Sukadev Goswami was born a Vaishnava, and therefore Brahmanism was included in him. He did not have to undergo any ceremonies. Any low-born person, be he a Kirata, Puna, Andhra, Pulinda, Pulaska, Abhira, Shumbha, Yavana, Kasha, or even lower, can be delivered to the highest transcendental position by the mercy of the Vaishnavas. Srila Sukadeva Goswami was the spiritual master of Sri Suta Goswami, who therefore offers his respectful obeisances unto Srila Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, he begins his answers to the questions of the sages of Naimisharanya. Text 3. Translation. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him, the spiritual master of all sages, the son of Vyasadeva, who, out of his great compassion for those gross materialists who struggle to cross over the darkest regions of material existence, spoke this most confidential supplement to the stream of Vedic knowledge after having personally assimilated it by experience. Purport. In this prayer, Srila Suta Goswami practically summarizes the complete introduction of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural supplementary commentary on the Vedanta Sutras. The Vedanta Sutras, or the Brahma Sutras, were compiled by Vyasadeva with a view to presenting just the cream of Vedic knowledge. Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary on this cream. Srila Sukadeva Goswami was a thoroughly realized master on the Vedanta Sutra, and consequently he also personally realized the commentary, Srimad Bhagavatam. And just to show his boundless mercy upon bewildered materialistic men who want to cross completely over the nations, he recited for the first time this confidential knowledge. There is no point in arguing that a materialistic man can be happy. No materialistic creature, be he the great Brahma or an insignificant ant, can be happy. Everyone tries to make a permanent plan for happiness, but everyone is baffled by the laws of material nature. Therefore, the materialistic world is called the darkest region of God's creation. Yet, the unhappy materialists can get out of it simply by desiring to get out. Unfortunately, they are so foolish that they do not want to escape. Therefore, they are compared to the camel who relishes thorny twig because he likes the taste of the twig mixed with blood. He doesn't realize that it is his own blood and that his tongue is being cut by the thorns. Similarly, the materialist, his own blood is as sweet as honey, and although he is always harassed by his own material creations, he doesn't wish to escape. Such materialists are called karmis. Out of hundreds of thousands of karmis, only a few may feel tired of material engagement and desire to get out of the labyrinth. Such intelligent persons are called jnanis. The Vedanta Sutra is directed to such jnanis. But Srila Vyasadeva, being the incarnation of the Supreme Lord, could foresee the misuse of the Vedanta Sutra by unscrupulous men, and therefore he personally supplemented the Vedanta Sutra with Bhagavata Purana. It is clearly said that this Bhagavatam is original commentary on Brahma Sutras. Srila Vyasadeva also instructed Bhagavatam to his own son, Srila Sukadeva Goswami, who was already at the liberated stage of transcendence. Srila Sukadeva realized it personally and then explained it. By the mercy of Srila Sukadeva and the Bhagavata Vedanta Sutra is available for all those sincere souls who want to get out of material existence. Srimad Bhagavatam is the one unrivaled commentary on Vedanta Sutra. Shripada Shankaracharya intentionally did not touch it because he knew that the natural commentary would be difficult for him to surpass. He wrote his Sharika Bhashya, and his so-called followers deprecated Bhagavatam as some new presentation. One should not be misled by such propaganda directed against Bhagavatam by the Mayavada school. From this introductory shloka, the beginning student should know that Srimad Bhagavatam is the only transcendental literature meant for those who are Paramahamsas and completely freed from the material desire called malice. The Mayavadis are envious of the personality of Godhead, despite Sripada Shankaracharya's admission that Narayana, the personality of Godhead, is above the material creation. The envious Mayavadi cannot have access to the Bhagavatam, but those who are really anxious to get out of this material existence may take shelter of this Bhagavatam because it is uttered by the liberated Srila Sukadeva Goswami. It is the transcendental torchlight by which one can see perfectly the transcendental absolute truth realized as Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. Text 4. Translation. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Nara Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Purport. All the Vedic literatures and the Puranas are meant for conquering the darkest region of material existence. The living being is in the state of forgetfulness of his relation with the God due to his being overly attracted to material sense gratification from time immemorial. His struggle for existence in the material world is perpetual, and it is not possible for him to get out of it by making plans. If he at all wants to conquer his perpetual struggle for existence, he must re-establish his eternal relation with God. And one who wants to adopt such remedial measures must take shelter of literatures such as the Vedas and Puranas. Many people say that Puranas have no connection with Vedas. However, Puranas are supplementary explanations of the Vedas intended for different types of men. All men are not equal. There are men who are conducted by the modes of goodness, others who are under the mode of passion, and others who are under the mode of ignorance. The Puranas are so divided that any class of men can take advantage of them and gradually regain their lost position and get out of the hard struggle for existence. Srila Sutta Goswami shows the way of chanting the Puranas. This may be followed by persons who aspire to be preachers of the Vedic literatures and the Puranas. Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless Purana, and it is especially meant for them who desire to get out of the material entanglement permanently. Text 5. Translation. O sages, I have been justly questioned by you. Your questions are worthy because they relate to Lord Krishna and so are relevant to the world's welfare. Only questions of this sort are capable of completely satisfying the self. Purport. Since it has been stated herein before that Bhagavatam, the absolute truth, is to be known, the questions of the sages of Naimisharanya are proper and just because they pertain to Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth. In Bhagavad Gita 15, text 15, the personality of Godhead says that in all the Vedas there is nothing but the urge for searching after him, Lord Krishna. Thus, questions that pertain to Krishna are the sum and substance of all the Vedic script inquiries. The whole world is full of questions and answers. The birds, beasts, and man are all busy in the matter of perpetual questions and answers. In the morning, the birds in the nest become busy with questions and answers. And in the evening, also the same birds come back and again become busy with questions and answers. The human being, unless he is fast asleep at night, is busy with questions and answers. The businessmen in the market are busy with questions and answers. And so also the lawyers in the court and the students in the schools and colleges. The legislators in the parliament are also busy with questions and answers. And the politicians and the press representatives are all busy with questions and answers. Although they go on making such questions and answers for their whole lives, they are not at all satisfied. Satisfaction of the soul can only be obtained by questions and answers on the subject of Krishna. Krishna is our most intimate master, friend, father, and or son, and object of conjugal love. Forgetting Krishna, we have created so many objects of questions and answers, but none of them are able to give us complete satisfaction. All things but Krishna give temporary satisfaction only. So if we are to have complete satisfaction, we must take to the questions and answers about Krishna. We cannot live for a moment without being questioned or without giving answers, because the Srimad Bhagavatam deals with questions and answers that are related to Krishna. We can derive the highest satisfaction only by reading and hearing this transcendental literature. One should learn the Srimad Bhagavatam and make an all-around solution to all problems pertaining to social, political, or religious matters. Srimad Bhagavatam and Krishna are the sum and total of all things. Text 6, translation. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which man can attain to loving devotional service unto the Transcendental Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Purport. In this statement, Sri Sutta Goswami answers the first question of the sages of Naimisharanya. The sages asked him to summarize the whole range of revealed scriptures and present the most essential part so that fallen people or the people in general might easily take it up. The Vedas prescribe two different types of occupation for the human being. One is called Pravrutti Marga, or the path of sense enjoyment, and the other is called Nivrutti Marga, or the path of renunciation. The path of enjoyment is inferior and the path of sacrifice for the Supreme is superior. The material existence of the living being is a diseased condition of actual life. Actual life is spiritual existence or Brahma Bhuta existence, where life is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Material existence is temporary, illusionary, and full of miseries. There is no happiness at all. There is just a futile attempt to get rid of miseries, and temporary cessation of misery is falsely called happiness. Therefore, the path of progressive material enjoyment, which is temporary, miserable, and illusionary, is inferior. But devotional service to Supreme Lord, which leads one to eternal, blissful, and all-cognizant life, is called superior quality of occupation. This is sometimes polluted when mixed with inferior quality. For example, adoption of devotional service for material gain is certainly an obstruction to the progressive path of renunciation. Renunciation or abnegation for ultimate good is certainly a better occupation than enjoyment in the diseased condition of life. Such enjoyment only aggravates the symptoms of disease and increases its duration. Therefore, devotional service to the Lord must be pure in quality, that is, without the least desire for material enjoyment. One should therefore accept the superior quality of occupation in the form of the devotional service of the Lord. Devotional service of the Lord without tinge of unnecessary desire, fruitive action, and philosophical speculation. This alone can lead one to perpetual solace in his service. We have purposefully denoted dharma as the occupation because the root meaning of the word dharma is that which sustains one's existence. A living being's sustenance of existence is to coordinate his activities with his eternal relation with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Krishna is the central pivot of living being, and he is all-attractive living entity or eternal form amongst all other living beings or eternal forms. Each and every living being has his eternal form in the spiritual existence, and Krishna is the eternal attraction for all of them. Krishna is the complete whole and everything else in his is his part and parcel. The relation is one of servant and the served. It is transcendental and completely distinct from our experience in material existence. This relation of servant and served is the most congenial form of intimacy. One can realize it as devotional service progresses. Everyone should engage himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, even in the present conditional state of material existence. That will gradually give one the clue to actual life and please him to complete satisfaction. Text 7.
Sorry.
You can start with.
I see the second question.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,